Hi, I'm Alvina Ling,
And I'm Grace Lin.
and we're book friends.
Forever!
We're childhood friends,
Who grew up to be
a children's book editor.
and an author and illustrator. Yay!
Welcome to Book Friends Forever. This is the CHOP SUEY, How to Ground Yourself, Publishing News, and AI Again episode. As a reminder, once a month, we'll have an odds and ends episode where we cover several topics.
And check out our Instagram handle at bookfriendsforever_podcast. Alvina, how have you been?
I have been good. Stephen and I celebrated our 4-year wedding anniversary this weekend.
Congratulations.
Yeah, 5 years of knowing each other. And we did this glamping experience on Governor's Island, which is this island that's halfway between Manhattan and Brooklyn. And we got a gift certificate. I actually got it for my 50th birthday last year. And it was a really novel, fun experience. We had a tent with a water view, and it had this amazing view of the Statue of Liberty. And we got to watch the sunset, and
That's so
it was just
cool.
so cool, so beautiful, so unique. I will say though that it wasn't peaceful, really. I mean, the view was peaceful, but there's helicopters going because it's like near lower Manhattan, so all these helicopter tours. There are like lots of boats that go by, including Staten Island Ferry. I think it's on the Newark Airport flight path. And so they had earplugs in the tent, which I think was a sign that they know it's really loud. So I put in the earplugs and I was able to fall asleep. But the next morning, Stephen was like, I can't believe you slept through the Dominican party boats. So he said it like from 12:20 to 1:20, he was up and he just, it was like loud DJ and the, like the dancing and the techno and just, and he said as soon as like one started to die down, another one would come. He said 3 different boats came by and, so, I'm sorry I missed it. I said, oh, you should have recorded it. And then
An
I when I
experience.
it was an experience. Yeah, when I went so I posted on Instagram when I went to work on Monday, Dave Kaplan, who's our creative director, he came by and he's like, "Oh, I saw you did the Governor's Island." And he said, were you awakened by those party boats?" Because he said they had that same experience. I think it's only Saturday night, but just be aware if you do it.
So
I
the
mean,
party boots are a common occurrence then.
it is a common. It seems like it's every Saturday night. And apparently, I think it leaves from, of course, Stephen, when he was awakened by it, he did some research. And I think they start in Queens and they go around, like around Manhattan. And I think because there isn't really a lot of residential in that little harbor, it's just Governor's Island. And, it's pretty far from New Jersey. I think that's why they settle there because they don't get as many complaints as if they like lingered somewhere else. So, you know, just these glamping people.
Who cares about the clappers?
So be aware. And then other than that, yesterday was the primary elections in New York City, and it was very exciting because Zoran Mamdani won the Democratic primary. And generally in New York City, if you win that primary, you do become mayor. So he's not our mayor yet, but it feels like he is. And most people that I know they're just really excited because
I'm
he's a
excited.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a really exciting candidate. He seems to have great ideas and just like he seems really kind and smart and
So nice to see a new face and like
yeah. And I mean, he was running against
uh,
Cuomo, and who wants Cuomo? He ran a really great campaign. I mean, Stephen was saying that because Stephen was the one who told me about him first, like way back in February. He's like, oh, this guy he's great, and his mom is also a documentary filmmaker, not just documentary, but his mom is a filmmaker who did Mississippi Masala, which is a movie he
yeah,
loved.
that's so cool.
So he was on his radar, but he was polling at 1% in February, and and now he won in end of June. So it's really
That's
incredible. I'm
Oh, that's
excited.
awesome. The one thing that I worry about though, like if I was in New York, it wouldn't have changed my vote or anything like that. I would definitely would have still voted for him. But the one thing that makes me worried is like I read all these articles where the Republicans are so happy that he won because they feel like it gives them so much like fodder to feed their hate pipeline, I guess. Like, and
I
I'm just
mean, he would be the youngest mayor of New York City, I believe. He is Muslim. He is South Asian. So there are a lot. I mean, even Cuomo's campaign, there was some controversy because they had manipulated a photo of him and made him look a little scarier, like made his beard look a little fuller. And I mean, so it's bound to happen. I do think he seems just so. I- You know what it is? It's like common sense. I feel like he has a lot of common sense and he's really articulate. And he's had to answer a lot of really tough questions and I don't know. I feel like
yeah.
he's prepared.
I think he's smart enough. It seems like his not just him, but like the people who are part of his campaign are smart enough to know how to navigate that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, it probably will be really dirty
Yeah.
and scary, but I don't know. But
I
we're
just
all
worry
really
about
excited.
the greater Democratic Party that was devoted to Cuomo does not seem to know how to navigate that
I
kind of stuff.
know. I mean, I really wish they would see this as, I mean, this is New York
Opportunity.
City,
Yeah.
right? Like I do think people want more progressive politics, We want, oh, sorry. I am making my desk shake, but I don't know. We'll see. But it was really exciting and I'm very happy. Um,
Well,
yeah,
it's really hopeful. I mean, especially with everything in the greater nation being so
yes.
depressing this past
And
week.
world.
And yeah, well, actually, the world, yeah, it was really, this was a rough weekend in terms of world politics. So it's nice to have something
Yeah,
to give us hope. So,
for sure. Anyway, how have you been?
oh, how have I been? Yeah, like I said, the greater world politics was really not not optimism making, but I tried really hard to just like embrace that like joy is an act of resistance kind of thing. And so I had events in Quincy and Watertown. So there are areas right around Boston or in Boston this past weekend. They're both at libraries. They were for summer reading kickoffs, and the events were just really great, especially the one in Watertown was terrific because we put on the Readers Theater. I think this
Oh,
will probably
fun.
be the last time I do the Readers Theater, but that was so much fun. And then Quincy is kind of like the new Chinatown of Boston. It's just got a huge Asian American population there, and
Oh,
so that was really great. And I realized because I drove to the area and I drove from Quincy to Watertown, and um, I realize now the thing that really tires me out of these school visits and these presentations and all these is not really the presentations, but it really is the traveling. And especially when I'm driving, like when I drove from from Quincy, from here to Quincy, and then Quincy to I went to Somerville to stay with our friends John and Loretta. And by the time I got to Somerville, I was so tired. It was like 7 o'clock. I'm like, guys, I'm going to sleep. Like, I was so tired. And I realized it's the driving. And it just might be me because I'm such a like alert driver. And I'm like, because I'm so nervous, want to make sure I don't get in any accidents. Um, so it was really because I was even more tired this weekend than I was when I was on tour. And I realized when I go on tour, there's always somebody bringing me places, so like
right.
I don't have to worry about how to get to
It's
places.
kind of like the mental load.
Yeah, so it's interesting how much that mental load really is exhausting. Oh, but one of the fun things I did this weekend before the summer reading kickoff was I got to have dim sum. I haven't had dim
Yay!
sum in such a long time.
Dim sum for everyone.
Yeah, dim sum for everyone. I had it with my friend Tien, who is a teacher as well as like just a such a one nice, super nice person and such a great supporter of my books, and we went to dim sum, and it was just it was funny because it was this dim sum restaurant called Joyful Garden that was inside a mall because wanted to make sure that it was close to the library so I wasn't late, and so I think I kind of had low expectations of the food, but it was actually really, really good.
Oh, good.
So that's
Yum.
really fun. And then I'm getting ready for ALA. I just met with John Shu,
Oh,
who's going to
yes.
be
Me
doing my
too. I'm getting ready.
Yay, we're getting like a in conversation at ALA, and that's exciting. And oh, and the other thing that we're starting to do, Debbie, Michiko, Florence, and I are beginning to plan for our very Asian book trip, which we'll do in October. So right now we're just like lining up all the bookstores and things that we're going to go to see in October. So for listeners who might not know what the very Asian book trip is when me and Debbie just go on a road trip and we stop at all these bookstores and we do stock signings. And so there's not really events. It's just us showing up at bookstores and signing stock, but you have to arrange the bookstores ahead of time and then drinking lots of boba and eating at so it's like a fun girls trip that we get to write off.
That's awesome.
So that's what we're planning now. And yeah, and after ALA, I'm excited because then I can really just get into painting mode because I find it really hard to keep switching back and forth from kind of like this presentation, talking about my work mode to like the introspective, like now I'm going to paint my illustrations for the book. So I'm kind of excited that ALA is like my last stop in the presentation mode, and then I can just sit and concentrate on painting the book, which hopefully I get done, which is due in September.
Right, because you said, what would you say, summer of painting?
Yes, I think it was summer of peace and painting,
Oh,
maybe.
yes. Nice.
So,
Awesome. All
all
right.
right.
So for our first segment, because the world is a trash fire right now, we just thought we would focus on how to ground yourself. Um, and so there are a couple of articles I found, and I know you were kind of listening to a podcast, right, of some kind, but I don't know how helpful that was. But
Yeah, I was listening to a book called Practical Optimism by
mhm,
Susan Varma or Varga, I can't remember. Which was not it's a fine book, but it didn't really so far I'm listening to it and I think I'm about like for 3 hours in. I'm pretty deep in, and it's been really great in terms of like reviewing pretty much everything I already knew. I
mhm,
haven't gotten anything new out of it, which is why I'm like, I don't
yeah.
know if I would super recommend it because it doesn't seem to be breaking any new ground for, but it is like a nice kind of reminder, like,
Yeah.
you have to like breathe and and think about
Okay. Well, okay. So there are two articles that maybe we'll talk about. The
okay,
first from Psychology Today. This is more of I would say more of an overview than like really practical tips, but the
okay,
other one had more practical tips. So this in kind of post in Psychology Today was called How to Feel Grounded in an Uncertain World. And it was a personal perspective. Why
yeah,
reconnecting with my past is helping me face the future. And it's by Jordan Grubbett, MD. So he says that meaning and purpose are required for happiness, um, and that meaning is a story we tell ourselves about ourselves, and purpose is forward looking. It's about what we do with our lives now and in the future. Um, and then he said, and then there's grounding, which is the powerful practice of using meaning to anchor ourselves in the present and guide us towards our purpose. Um, so yes.
yeah.
Did this resonate with you at all?
I think it did, and it also it did kind of it was similar to the book I was reading where they talk about like the idea of how to find happiness is like not you don't pursue happiness, you pursue meaning, you pursue purpose, and but you have to do action um, in order to make that happen. But really, what it's all about in the book and in this, when they talk about action, is the fact that it's all about feeling like you have a sense of control, right? And so the purpose is your action. The purpose being like you feel like you can do something to achieve your meaning, and so when you feel like you don't have that control to achieve your meaning, then that's when you kind of fall into despair. But what's interesting in this article is talks about how the grounding is what you need before you even have the meaning, which I thought was interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, he kind of talked about how I feel like he talked a lot about, I mean, I guess being grounded is similar to being present, right? And I feel like there was a focus on being present. So he said he was walking, um, and he's listening to a podcast, but then he decided to switch to classical music. And so classical music for him reminded him of, like, I guess his wife. He and his wife had enrolled in violin lessons, and so classical music for him became infused with the memory of his family and love and quiet moments together. Um, so, I guess using certain external things um,
Yeah,
to
I
feel
think
more present.
I, I read it more like the grounding was more reminding you why you have this meaning, like kind of
Mm.
like it
Oh,
was like
right,
the constant reminders of like you have your meaning, but the grounding is like this is why you have this meaning. This is why you have this meaning. Like this is why it's so important to you, which I think is good. It is about being present and always kind of like always being grateful, like always being remembering
right.
why.
Right, that's true. He said, grounding is the act of bringing our meaning, our stories, our identity into the present so it can guide our purpose. Well, the other article is from Calm, calm.com, and it's their blog, and the article is How to Ground Yourself When You Feel Stressed or Anxious. Which is all the time. Actually, I was listening to a podcast where, they're saying hello and and they say, "Oh, this is the culture gap." So like, Dana, how are you feeling? And she said, "I am feeling happy." And she's like, the three of us are together again because, some of them have been on vacation, so they haven't all recorded together. And one of the other people said, he's like, I just was floored. Haven't heard someone say that they feel happy in a long time. And she said, well, happy for this specific situation. Um, anyway, so this article has more, I guess, has more tips. So there are four types. It says there are four types of grounding techniques, including the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. Um, which I think I have heard of. So there are mental techniques, which uses your mind to distract and calm yourself by focusing on mental exercises like counting backwards from 100 in multiples of seven. I feel like
I don't
someone,
know.
I think Anna said, or maybe it was Libby, and we're like,
I think that would
I
stress me
can't do
out.
that.
That would stress me out more than whatever's going on. Like, I'm so bad at math.
I know. Or naming states in alphabetical order. Um,
Yeah, that also seems like a test. I don't know if I like either of those.
Stephen and I we were talking about the games we would play on road trips, and he said his family would play I think they called it well, I forget what they called it, but it's basically like you name a geographical place, like Alabama, and then the next person has to name another place that starts with the last letter. So I guess Alabama was a bad example because then it's A again, but let's say it was Arkansas, and then the next person has to do S, and they might say South Carolina, and then it's A again. A comes up a lot, but it was fun actually, and it does I think ground you a little bit. It just gives you something else to focus on.
That's true.
Um, there's physical techniques, so you reconnect with the present using your body and senses. In this type of grounding, you often focus on the sensations you notice in and around your body, like the feeling of your feet on the ground, the sounds around you, or the texture of an object you're holding. Um, I think
Yeah, I think
is this
uh,
part of the 5-4? What's where you, oh yes, this is later on. The 5-4, it's where you like you use your five senses. So you're like, okay, what are five things you can see?
yeah, five things, and then
Four things you can touch.
yeah,
Three things you can hear. Yes.
yeah. So, um, yes, I like the 15 tips at the end of that article, which
Hmm.
there nothing is groundbreaking. I'm like, oh, we know all these, but maybe it's nice to have a nice like
Yes.
reminder. So why don't we just quickly go through, well, just like one, focus on your breath, which is like
Okay.
everybody like breathe.
Ooh, two, prioritize physical wellness.
Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to get back in. Well, I'm still running, but it's so hot.
I know. I did run this morning and it was really hot.
This morning I was at the gym and doing my 5 o'clock class, and the air conditioner was broken, and everyone was sweating so much, and it was so hot. We were all slipping on the ground, and and then at the end, when we stretch, we have to do the downward dog, and and I was so sweaty that I was slipping doing the
Oh my
downward dog.
God.
Like, it was so gross. But
Yeah.
honestly, it was kind of funny because it was so disgusting. I got home and I was like, ugh, and I like took a shower. But then after I took a shower and I was all clean, I was like, wow, I feel like really good. It was like I sweated so much out of me.
Nice.
So
Yeah, it was like going to
like,
a sauna or something.
yeah, that's what I was like. Oh, that must be what it's like to be in a sauna. Like it's just
Yes.
like you're just dripping every every
Yes.
liquid out of you, and then you just need to like drink like
Purge.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like a brand new renewal. So yes, physical activity or a sauna is good.
All right.
Um,
You're number three.
ensure quality sleep. So use those earplugs if you are
Yes.
glamping.
Number four, spend time in nature.
Yes, that's why I like running outside when I can, but not in this heat.
Yes.
Five, listen to music. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know
S-
if there's a certain song that I listen to, but maybe I should try.
Yeah. Six, avoid overthinking. I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
easier.
said than done,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they were saying write down your thoughts to pen and paper and uh, to stop your over. Is there a certain song that you listen to that calms you down? I was trying to think if I had one and I
I
did
mean,
not.
classical music, I think. I don't
Hmm.
know about, I'm trying to think of other. There's this song, I think it's a hymn, but there's Sinead O'Connor sings it, a version of it, and it's make me a shadow of your peace where there is strength. I don't know if I have the words, but that it's really lovely. I had a playlist back in college called This Too Shall Pass, and it was kind of a breakup playlist. And
Uh-huh.
it starts with like angry breakup songs, but then it
Uh-huh.
gradually becomes more calm songs, and that was one of them. So
Oh, interesting. All
yeah.
right. Number seven, adopt different perspectives. Sorry, I messed that word up. Okay.
Um,
Number seven, adopt different perspectives.
yes. Eight, focus on what you can control.
Yes, and that was like kind of one of the main themes in the book I was reading too, which I think is a common thing that all self-help books and
Yeah.
gurus all talk about. Number nine, take small steps, and that's another thing too. Is like take it manageable parts because otherwise you have the overwhelm, and that's true.
Right. 10, do what you're good at.
Interesting, yeah,
Boost your confidence.
yeah, that's true. Do a hobby or activity you excel in. So, so
Yeah.
I think those are all good things to do.
Yeah.
So.
There's more.
Do you feel grounded? Oh, there's more. Sorry. I thought
There's
we were
15.
15. I thought we were stopping at 10.
Oh,
11. Align with your purpose.
yeah. I think we've talked about that before. 12, remember the temporary nature of problems. Hey, this too shall pass.
Yes, yes. Change. The only thing that is permanent is change.
Yes.
um, 13. Create a routine.
14, practice mindfulness.
And 15. Seek social support.
Yes.
I think that's really good. I've been thinking about friend groups a lot, which I think we'll talk about in the
Yeah,
future.
on the future.
Um,
All
yes.
right. Awesome. Okay, so for our next segment of this Chop Suey, we thought we'd just talk about a bunch of publishing news. So the first is let's just quickly talk about the Boston Globe Hornbook
Oh,
Awards,
sure.
which were
So
just announced.
the Horn Book Globe Award winners, the Boston Globe Horn Book Awards were announced. The winners are uh, for the picture book is I Know How to Draw an Owl by Hilary Horder Hippoly, illustrated by Matt James. It's a Neil Porter book. Do you know this book at all?
I don't actually, but I want to check it out.
It looks really beautiful.
Yep. The fiction award winner is Everything We Never Had by Randy Rebay.
which
Um,
also won
it was nominated for a National Book Award,
okay, but it
I
didn't win. Did
remember.
it win the National
I
Book
don't
Award?
think, no, it did not win. That was Cream in Between.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So, but I remember it was nominated. And then the nonfiction award winner was Death in the Jungle, Murder, Betrayal, and the Lost Dream of Jonestown by Candace Fleming, who
it
is
was,
just an amazing nonfiction writer. We were talking
yeah,
about how there's
love her.
certain authors who like are just known for nonfiction, and I think it's her and Steve Schenken these days that are like the nonfiction gurus that come to mind.
Yeah,
Um, the other ones that I wanted to mention were the honor books. The one I really wanted to mention that I loved was the nonfiction honor book Uprooted by Ruth Chan.
yeah.
I was supposed to blurb that, and I didn't because I'm just not good at deadlines and things. But I wanted everybody to know that I loved it, and I would have blurbed it if I was more organized. So, yay, Ruth, for winning!
Yay.
Honor.
Yes. And maybe I'll point out one other honor book, which My Daddy is a Cowboy by Stephanie Seals, illustrated by C.G. Esperanza. That's one that we was in our mock Caldecott. It didn't win the mock Caldecott, but yeah, we really did like it. So
Oh, I
I
think it
mentioned that
did win
too.
a Caldecott honor, right?
Oh, did it?
Sure. There's
Maybe
a
I'm.
sticker on it, but I don't know if
Oh,
they're.
maybe it did. Sorry.
I don't know if
There
it
is a
did.
sticker on it.
Well,
Um,
if it didn't, it sure deserved it.
All right. So the next bit of news is that BookCon is back, baby.
So
Um, how
tell
long has it
people,
been?
yeah, tell people about BookCon.
So
Um,
BookCon was I don't actually know if it was technically an offshoot of Book Expo, but I mean I think it was because it took place right after Book Expo. So Book Expo was more of the trade show where with booksellers and the publishers, with booths and all of that. And then BookCon started right after Book Expo ended, and that was more of the consumer facing fair where just book lovers and readers would come from all over and they would come to signings and panels um, and it was really great. It was a great way to promote our books. It was a great way for authors to interact directly with their readers. There are always great signings, and it was. I remember early on, it was like John Green. That was when John Green was really big, and he would go to BookCon and he would be mobbed. Um, so I guess BookCon has not existed for 5 years, but they're bringing it back next year in April. Book Expo, though, is not coming back. There is something called book. Oh gosh, there was something that was a couple weeks ago. That
the
I'm
one in Portland, right?
no, no, that Children's Institute has existed. No, but Book
Oh,
Expo. No, there's book. Oh, it's called Book Show, the U.S. Book Show, which is more just for industry, and it's
uh-huh.
small though. It's not like Book Expo where there
Mhm.
were publisher booths and stuff. It was just more panels. So I did not attend, but some of my colleagues went, and there was a lot of panels about AI, which is another segment on this Chop Suey episode. Um, but I think it's exciting to see BookCon come back, and we're excited to see what the format is going to be. I mean, it sounds like maybe it'll be similar because it's going to be at the Javits Center again.
Yeah, which nobody likes.
Javits Center is so much better now because there is actually a subway that goes there now.
Uh-huh.
There used to not be, and it used to just be really hard to get to, but now there's a subway that goes right there, and so I think it's fine. Um, all right. And then the final bit of news, it popped up today because I have a Google alert on where the mountain meets the moon. And I thought,
Oh,
oh, what is this? And well, Grace, do you want to talk about it? Because
so I found, well, you sent it to me, and it seems like there's a store in San Francisco. Let me get the name of the store. That has decided to
it's
has
called Booksmith.
Booksmith has decided to decline to sell Harry Potter books because of J.K. Rowling's anti-trans pledge. And I think that's really, I think that's really gutsy of them, honestly, like super gutsy, because they feel like they do not want any of they don't want to give money to her anti-trans fund, which she plans to finance with her earnings. So I think that's yeah, super gutsy. I applaud them
Yeah, I think
for
it's really bold. And to be honest, like she doesn't need them to stock her books. I mean,
yeah,
she's a billionaire. You know, and I mean, I applaud them for taking the stance because they're located in the hate street and they have like a LGBTQ clientele. So, I think it just her stance really goes against their mission.
yeah.
Um, but I mentioned the book I had read last week, I think that was, or 2 weeks ago, that was a translation. It was called like now I can't remember the name, but it was about a bookstore owner. And in the book, she ends up deciding to not stock bestsellers because she felt like
Oh,
especially an independent bookstore, the goal was to connect books with readers, and she just didn't feel like bestsellers, they can already find out about them, and they don't
huh.
need that. And I thought that was interesting.
That
And
is
I
interesting.
don't know
I
if
wonder if that would work.
I know. I don't know.
I feel like the margins for bookstores are so slim, like
I know.
it's a rough one.
So
But like that's
yeah,
why I
I don't know if
applaud.
anyone is actually doing that, but
Yeah.
so what I thought was nice is at the end of this article that's in the San Francisco Chronicle, they talk about the other books that they promote instead, and the list includes Jessica Townsend's Nevermore series, which
A
I
little better.
edited, and
Yay.
the fourth book just came out. Ursula Le Guin's seminal Earthsea Cycle, Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials, and other featured titles include Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin, the Tristan Strong series by Kwame Mbalia, and Hurricane Child by Kaysen Callender, and Rick Riordan's The Heroes of Olympus series. So,
Of course, you're great. But do you know, I just off topic, but I found out that Where the Mountain Meets the Moon was published on July 1st. So on July 1st, it'll be
oh,
16-year anniversary.
nice. Happy anniversary. Where the Mountain Meets the Moon.
First.
For some reason, I don't remember it being a summer book, but
Yeah, I didn't really either, but it's like yeah, I have it like all I found like the old pictures and the old everything and like here's the launch date and like all the stuff. So I was like, oh,
oh,
July 1st.
that's great.
So,
All right. So for our next segment, we just thought there are a lot of things about AI that have
yeah.
come up recently. And so we
Yeah.
thought we'll talk about AI again, and I'm sure we'll talk about AI again and again
Again
because
and again and
things
again.
keep changing.
Mhm.
Um, so why don't we talk about this apology first? So because we did specifically talk about this AI
Uh-huh.
generated summer reading list.
Mhm.
Um, and so I saw that the publisher or the editor, the Sun Times CEO issued a very long detailed apology, kind of also explaining how it happened.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a section that says, "How did this happen?" Um, so he said that it started with a freelancer working with King Features. Oh, so Marco Bascaglio is the freelancer. He was
Mhm.
the one who we named who was responsible for the list. So he's a former full-time journalist who freelances in the evenings. And to come up with the material, he said he used an AI agent and sent his stories in without checking his work. That's human mistakes number one and two. The stories arrived at King Features, um, and they are conducting their own internal review, so it's uncertain what broke down, but it's likely that the team did not conduct a thorough fact-checking or copy editing process before sending the work out to partners, which is human mistake number three. Uh, King Features is part of Hearst, which is a large media company that manages dozens of newspapers. Members of the Sun Times circulation department trusted that work license from King Features would live up to a level of editorial rigor that matches the standards of Chicago public media. So they did not submit the pages for review to anyone on the editorial team, nor acknowledge in print that the content was created by a third party. Instead, the department packaged it under a Sun Times banner and sent it to homes across the region. Human mistake number four. Um, and then, so, they said they made these choices because it was trying to help keep our finances as stable as possible. Blah, blah, blah. Um, I appreciated that oh, well, there's more. So this is um, the CEO joined the organization in September 24, and he he didn't just deeply investigate the additions and quickly approved the team to continue the practice in place of doing these like third party features. Um, so they published another King Features edition that November on Holiday Magic, and last week the now infamous Heat Index, which is human mistake number five, my own. Um, were there any other human mistakes? So he said, I am sorry for our mistakes that brought us to this point, and I know that this incident will help us be smarter, more thoughtful, and more prepared for the very real challenges ahead.
You know,
It's a really long
I
article, but
understand that, they are doing it to save their finances, but this to me just makes me less likely to want to pay for their journalism.
yeah,
Like why would I want to pay for their journalism when they're just going to use these AI agents? Like I can do that myself, like so I don't know. I think this is an example of where to save in the short term, they're killing the long term.
yeah,
I mean, everybody who hears about this, like, does that make you want to get a subscription to the Sun Times? No, like,
no. Oh, so I
uh,
guess the CEO must be the author of this piece, which is Melissa Bell. It's a she. Um, at the very end of this very long, detailed article, they do, name the actual titles by the authors that were named in this summer reading list. But as we said, like these are all really big authors, and they don't actually need the exposure as much as,
yeah, I
smaller.
really don't understand why Marco, whatever his name is, didn't just call up his local library and like
Yeah.
he got a list in like 10 minutes, or like by the afternoon he could have called in the morning and the librarian would be like, oh,
I know.
like
You could have sent an email to like three
yeah,
booksellers and come,
he could have he could have put a tweet on Twitter,
right.
on X, sorry, or something on Threads, and he would have gotten something like so fast.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't understand why he felt like he had to. Like I don't understand how lazy was it that he couldn't even do that. He had to do an AI generator. Like, and that's just things
Yeah.
that it like I said, it just makes me be like, well, what's the point of
I
me
know.
getting your newspaper? Like, like
I think what's kind of sad and scary is, like almost every industry is using AI. Like law firms, I think, graphic design places, accounting. Like, I mean, I know so many people and they regularly already use AI. We do not in publishing, and in part because I think we know that these AI, they were created on are stolen material. Um,
yeah,
but it's already it's almost, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of fighting a losing battle,
yeah,
in a way, but
yeah.
I don't know. Well, speaking of fighting a losing battle, there was a recent ruling. A federal judge in San Francisco ruled that AI model training on books constitutes fair use under US copyright law.
Really?
Yeah, so this is the first ruling of its kind. Um, I think so it's it's a little complicated. So
That's
uh
pretty heartbreaking. Okay.
yes, and this ruling represents the first substantive judicial decision on how copyright law applies to the AI training practices that have become standard across the tech industry. Um, because I think you can't copyright AI created text,
Uh-huh.
but I think you can copyright text that used AI in
Okay.
the process of being written, I
Okay.
think.
So the idea being like they can use it's not illegal for them to train on it, but they
Right.
can, but you can't, whatever they publish, whatever they write from using it, you can't publish. It's not copyrightable.
I think so. I mean, I think that's why it's complicated. It
Uh,
says, while using legally acquired copyrighted books to train AI large language models constitutes fair use, downloading pirated copies of those books for permanent storage violates copyright law. What does that mean?
yeah. So they
Um,
can only use it if it's not downloaded. So it has to be
print to
original.
digital change was fair use. Um, Not because it was used in training, but instead because, quote, the mere conversion of a print book to a digital file to save space and enable searchability was transformative. Hi, Allison.
Hi, am I too early?
No, you're right on time, but we were finishing up talking
Okay.
about AI, and so maybe you
Mm,
can participate in this because we're not
okay.
we were trying to talk about that new case. Um, where a federal judge rules AI training is fair use, an anthropic copyright case.
Yeah.
But it's kind of
Yeah.
complicated. Um,
Yeah.
but listeners and watchers, so usually we record with Allison first, and then Grace and I record the beginning, but we decided to try that we would record the beginning and then have Allison join at the right exact time, but we timed it a little bit wrong.
Timed it a little off. Let's just finish the AI, but actually, Allison, you can join in because the one part of the one article that I really, really want to talk about AI is the article that says that found out that if you use AI, it makes you stupid.
Right. Did you see this going around the
No, but
interwebs?
it does not sound wrong to me. Yeah, I have definitely had the experience too of even just reading the Google AI summary and then being like, That's wrong. Like, I mean, many times.
So there's an
Because
article in the
I often
Telegraph.
skim it out of
I know.
curiosity, and then
And then you have to, yes.
yeah, it's not good.
I think it's funny because the headline is using AI makes you stupid, researchers find.
I would like to read the AI summary of the article. Yeah.
I mean, we
Um,
should ask Chat GPT, does using you make people stupid? See
yeah.
what it says. But the study reveals chatbots risk hampering development of critical thinking, memory,
Mm.
and language skills.
Yeah, all of that sounds right. All of that
Yeah,
sounds
they
right to
said
me.
that scans found that brain connectivity systematically scaled down with the amount of external support and were weakest in those who were relying on AI chatbots to help them write essays. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically it makes their they're saying it's like an impact on cognitive muscles. So it's like it causes lasting damage to our brains, they said, if you keep using them. I'm just curious if we're going to see long-term effects from this as people who use AI grow older. Like, will we see more dementia? Will we see more like early onset Alzheimer because our, like they always talk about like everything needs your heart needs to that's why you need to exercise, keep your heart strong. Like you need to be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also will say, just on the topic of Anthropic, it's I was gonna say it's worth looking at if you want to feel depressed or disturbed. It's worth looking at the New York Times article yesterday that shows photos of the massive building that Amazon has built in Indiana that takes up some astonishing amount of space of farmland, where they've built one of the first sort of major centers for Anthropic to run on. And they're building several others around the country. And it is the amount of power that it uses, the amount that would be used to power a million households. And the amount of water that it's going to use is astonishing. And that has so many other implications. Um, that when we talk about AI, a lot of people are just thinking about how does it impact my ability to write a cover letter or, XYZ, specific examples that impact our everyday lives, but there are other massive environmental implications also.
Mhm.
Um, that it's easy to forget about. But when you look at these photos in the New York Times, it's pretty hard to forget the scale of the environmental impact. Like even just the size of these huge like data farms. I actually computing farm. I actually don't know what it's called in this context when it's specifically generating just AI. But it's alarming. So
Yeah.
just another thing to be
Another,
pondering.
I know.
Another joyful, yes, experiment. I will say I bought Gareth a very entertaining shirt. I bought it 2 years ago now for his birthday, and it says AI Art Club, and it has a thumbs up, but the thumbs up has two thumbs and an extra finger. And so it kind of takes a second where you're like, what? And it's very
Yeah.
funny. But I gave it to him early because at the time I was like, this joke is not going to be funny by your birthday a month later because it's the speed of AI is moving so fast. And yet I also it recently ran an image search literally just to kind of test this functionality, and it still failed at the hand so badly that I was like, nope, still funny, still relevant.
Yeah.
But it's become less funny because AI has become less funny. Um, but it's still a good shirt, just to say.
Yeah.
Still a good shirt. But
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, but now since you're here, we are ready
All right, we're
to
gonna roll dice.
have this
Yeah.
special guest, Alison Morris,
Okay.
children's literature specialist, join us to tell us what we could be reading.
Okay.
So,
Hi, hi.
hi.
Hi, I'm happy to yeah, recommend books that are currently under copyright and
And not
hopefully
written, we hope, by AI.
not being used to
And not
train
using
AI
AI.
to create other things and put other creatives out of work. I will say I have experimented with ChatGPT a couple times to ask it to write a children's book just to see how bad it is. It's terrible. Because as we know, it's really, really hard. It's really hard to write a picture book in particular. Even we as humans struggle with it. So, of course, if you have trained an AI model also on whatever they've scanned, you're not going to get the best stuff. But everyone out there, your ideas are still your ideas. They are going to be unique, and I do not currently believe computers can be able to replicate those anyway. So, nor do I want it to, because that's fun, right? Having ideas is fun. Why would we rob ourselves of that opportunity? Anyway, okay. So, I thought I'd start today by talking about holidays past and holidays future. Specifically, two books that are similar only in that they have a poetic text and they are about summer holidays, and they have wonderful illustrations. But I think they're truly standouts from this terrific year of books. And so first I want to talk about Juneteenth, which of course we just very recently celebrated. And I'm sorry to be sharing this one a little late, but I did want to give out a shout out to this new title available now, which is So Many Years, a Juneteenth Story, written by Anne Winter, Winter, and illustrated by Jerome Pumphrey of the Pumphrey brothers, as people often say. This is just Jerome without his brother, doing a wonderful job. And I will say there have been a number of really, really good Juneteenth books in the last few years. And part of what I've loved about them is they approach this complicated topic from very different angles, and many of them with great success. And this book continues that trend. I think the best way actually to bring you into the tone and feel of the book and give you a sense of what's so unique about it is to read some of the text aloud to you. And it's pretty brief. In theory, I could read it all, but I feel like that's also kind of stealing the book's thunder. So I'm not going to do that here. But it opens with, how would you dress after so many years of mending your clothes with rags? And we see a family, we sort of see black and white illustration with just a little bit of color on one side and this sort of thread running through this family who are wearing clothes that are sort of household rags. And then we see in a color balloon them dressed up in their finery like they're going somewhere special. And it's much more vibrant with lots of color. How would you sing after so many years of writing your songs in code? And on each spread, we see scenes that are historical and then scenes that are sort of joyful, more celebratory, and this family is going somewhere. I'm just going to keep reading the text and maybe not describe the illustrations. How would you eat after so many years of making your meals from scraps? How would you dance after so many years of working through waves of pain? After so many years that were stolen again and again and again? I'm just gonna read the whole text, y'all. Lean in, lean in. Oh, how you would dress. Oh, how you would sing. Oh, how you would eat. Oh, how you would dance. Oh, how you would celebrate. So many years of a life fully yours, fully free. Okay, so
Beautiful.
that is the text.
Hmm.
Since you heard the whole text, you probably don't need me to describe a lot about what this book is accomplishing here. Though without seeing the pictures, maybe leaves hopefully still some things to the imagination. Um, what I love about this book really is that it invites all readers to imagine the experiences of the Black humans who lived on this earth before us, whether or not the listener themselves is from the same culture or community. And I think by extension, the book asks readers to imagine the lived experiences of all people who came before us from any community or culture. It also manages a very tricky balancing act of acknowledging the very real struggles and awful experiences of enslaved people, but focusing chiefly on resilience and celebration, and on why Juneteenth is such a celebration, why freedom is why freedom is worthy of celebrating, not just by Black Americans, but by everyone everywhere. And mostly, I think I just love it because it humanizes our ancestors. It encourages empathy. I love this sort of literal thread in the book, but also this thread that runs through, you know, this sense of then and now on each of those spreads. And also, even the now is historical. So we're seeing the same Black family sort of before Juneteenth and after Juneteenth on the page. But then it brings us up into the present with other generations. So it really sort of takes us through time, multiple beats in time. And I think I don't know, I think it's a terrific book that humanizes our ancestors. It encourages empathy. And both the text and the details in the art invite readers to ask a lot of meaningful questions about the lived experiences of people and reflect on how those experiences might be different from their own across different generations. So I think it's a beautiful book. I'm a big fan.
Great.
That is So Many Years, A Juneteenth Story by Ann Winter and Jerome Pumphrey. And then looking ahead just a tiny bit into the future, Fireworks, written by Matthew Burgess and illustrated by Katia Chen, just came out in May. And this is the publisher copy. The summary copy will tell you this is a book about the 4th of July. But I will also just say it never mentions the 4th of July in the text. So if there's another celebratory event happening in a very hot time of the summer for you, you could still read this book then. Let me just say, it's not a book about the 4th of July. There's nothing patriotic in it. Also, I'm just going to say my chair just sank. So if anyone's watching on Zoom and I just got shorter, that was my chair. Okay, that was unexpected. Okay, so this
illustration in that book. I was just gonna say, Katya's illustrations in that book are so beautiful. Betsy
they're
Bird had
so
her,
good.
Betsy Bird had her down as a possible Caldecott contender for that, and I feel like there's certain artists and there's certain writers who I feel like it's their time, like they're due. I feel like she's one that's kind of due. So like I think it's really beautiful.
100% yes. I have been a massive Katya Chen fan for years, and I just feel like everyone else has now like just discovered in the last few books how amazing she is. And I'm like, where have you all been? We love her. We love her work. And Matthew Burgess, I've loved so many of his books too. They both have such, I don't know, there's this poetic sensibility to what each of them does. And so I think that the marriage of the two of them works really great here. You guys, my chair is still sinking. Apologies. This may be the end of my chair you're witnessing right here today. Anyway, okay. So this book, if you want to know what summer looks and feels like, this book brings it all to life in a sort of glorious way. Like its sticky hotness and also the explosive, joyful, like celebratory nature of freedom and fun of summer. This book captures all of that. So we're following two kids as they make their way through a July day in New York City. And they're like trudging on steamy sidewalks. They're jumping into a fire hydrant that's leaking and walking to the bodega, going through the park. And we go back and forth also between these sort of like wider moments where we see more of the city and then these intimate details of them eating watermelon and things like that. And yeah, Grace, I mean, Katya's compositions, they're not like anyone else's. They're filled with these surprises and these like whimsical abstractions that just work beautifully. And there is this energy to them that I really think kind of sizzles, which is why like metaphorically, it also works perfectly for a book about fireworks. I just think they're the perfect companion to Matthew Burgess's text here. Also, her kids look like kids and they move like kids. Yeah, I just love it. And in this book, there's also this like luminous spread at sunset that just like made my Faith Ringgold loving heart sing because it brought to mind Tar Beach for me, which is another book where
Mm.
you get to see kids on a New York City rooftop. And that one's in my old neighborhood of Washington Heights. So it also like, I will say it also like gave me the New York City warm fuzzies a little bit too. That being said, it doesn't matter if you never lived in New York, if you don't love New York, you can still very much enjoy this book. You can make it, the experiences in it are applicable to places elsewhere. And it's just a great celebratory, fun, joyful book. Great to read for 4th of July or anytime, summer especially. But yeah, it's a winner. And yeah, as Grace said, this book is on Betsy Bird's summer list of Caldecott predictions. And yeah, I'm like right there with her. So
Nice.
the more Caldecotts for Katia, the better. That being said, there are other books I also love this year, just to say to everyone else. And also, we don't know what's gonna happen. But okay, so there you go. Those are my holidays, past and future. I'm sinking again. So I'm just gonna keep pulling myself up right here. All right. The next little section: publishers do so love an anniversary.
Hmm.
And sometimes those anniversaries feel like a little bit of a reach or more unusual than others. So do you see me going down again? 2024, just to say, marked the 50th anniversary of the creation of the Rubik's Cube. And you might not think picture books about the Rubik's Cube were something we really needed in the world, but it turns out we did. And I say this because I wasn't really interested in Rubik's Cubes. I mean, I'm interested in them as objects and as a historical thing, but my short place down here in my shrinking chair. I was not a kid who grew up trying to solve it. I wasn't obsessed with them. I really just wasn't that interested in knowing the history of a Rubik's Cube, and these books made me care. And if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you probably know one of the things I love most is the magic of a great book to make you interested in a thing you did not know was interesting, right? To me, that's part of the coolest thing about what we all get to do. Like, I don't know, that children's books are about creating curiosity, inviting wonder, and like learning things that make us eager to learn more, and recognizing that like in the right hands, anything can be maybe made interesting. Okay. So anyway, that's just my little aside. For those of you who are already like, I'm a math nerd and I love Rubik's Cubes, you're going to already be engaged with the topic. I was not, and now I am. So there you go. All right. So on to the first of these two books. I'm going to go in sort of reverse order because the first one I'm talking about isn't out yet, and the other one came out a year ago. So Me and the Magic Cube is the new one coming out in September, written by Daniel Fehr, F-E-H-R, and illustrated by Golden Cosmos, which is a freelance author and illustrator duo living in Berlin, and their real names are, apologies, I'm probably going to butcher these, Doris Fragofas and Daniel Doltz. Golden Cosmos, and translated by Marshall Yarborough. So this book is narrated by a kid who finds a Rubik's Cube, or originally it was called a Magic Cube, in a dusty box in their house, and they have no idea what it is because this is contemporary world we're in. But like all kids, after they twist it around a bit, it was already like it had been solved. They twisted it around, and then we're like, I want to put it back again and can't figure out how to do it. They take it to school, and all the other kids are also like, what is this thing? And they're all trying to do it, can't figure out how to do it. And it turns out that this kid's mom is like a wizard at doing it. She's super fast. And through the course of reading the book, you learn about the different you learn sort of the history of the cube and how it came to be to a small extent. And you also learn about the elements of the puzzle that have made it so compelling for the last 50 years. I will admit this book has a lot of text. It has some very sophisticated math concepts. Of the two, this one definitely works for the older end of readers. But it's really engaging. The art is super cool. It's in a sort of day glow flat color illustration style with a lot of graphic elements. So it has a 70s sensibility or 70s vibe, but it has a very modern sensibility. And that combination is great. It's just great. It's a really cool book. There's also just this tiny detail I want to mention in the book where these kids, there's three kids who get super into trying to solve the Rubik's Cube. And they are best friends. They hang out together every day after school, and they have this unique way that they like to lay together on a sofa. This sort of them clicking into place. And there's this sort of metaphor for them clicking into place like a Rubik's Cube. But what I love about it, sort of me also talking about one of the things Katia Chen does so well, is like this little detail of them laying on each other. That's what kids do. And it's not a thing you see that often in picture books. And that sort of just stood out to me because it's just one of those very human things. And I don't know. I just love that it had this place in this larger book about this cool math puzzle. In any case, that is Me and the Magic Cube coming in September 2025. So our second Rubik's Cube book I'm going to talk about is Erno Rubik and His Magic Cube, written by Carrie Aradia. Carrie, I'm sorry. Aradhya, Aradia. Carrie Aradia, I'm guessing. Hopefully, Carrie, apologies. And illustrated by Kara Kramer. This was published a year ago in June 2024. And this is a much more straightforward picture book biography. It's about Erno Rubik, the inventor of the Rubik's Cube. It follows a largely linear path through his life. Growing up in Budapest, we see that even as a kid, he had this like love of puzzles and how much he loved to how much he loved to take things apart, put them back together, and also make things out of shapes. We get a sense of his personality, and I feel like that's part of what I loved about the book is that comes through all the way to the present because Erno is still living today. And we see as a kid, he used to use the same things that a lot of teachers still keep in the classroom, which is like tangrams, pentominoes, and pentacubes. And also, I love that here we get to affirm why those things are still valuable tools to have in your classroom. In any case, Erno grew up, he studied art, architecture, became a teacher. And when he was in the classroom, he used to build models to teach his students about the composition of three-dimensional objects. And one day he was looking at a cube he'd built and he started wondering if he could build a cube out of smaller cubes that moved around one another and stayed connected. And then through the book, we see the extent to which this was not easy. We see the materials he used, which is like wood blocks and rubber bands and paper clips. And you're like, how is that even going to work? It didn't. But we see him struggling. And then one day he goes out for a walk. And while he's on that walk, he sees specific things in nature that help him land on a solution to his problem. And then he gets there. And at that stage, he thinks he's just built a cool object. He actually doesn't yet know that he's built a puzzle. And then once he realizes it's a puzzle, it takes him another month to solve his own puzzle and then make it cooler. And then eventually in 1974, he invents the Magic Cube at the age of 29. And since then, we learn more than 1 billion people who tried to solve the puzzle of his creation. And it's really interesting. Watching him puzzle through this is interesting. Learning about this thing he made is interesting. There's also geometric shapes that are used to really clever ways in the illustrations. And I really liked that aspect of it. So yeah, I found this great. I also really enjoyed both these books, partly because they shine a great window on math and geometry, but on the act of creation and also on the tactile experiences of making things by hand. So that's a big part of this. Watching Erno puzzle with it, watching these kids puzzle with it, like there is this enjoyment in making things and solving things by hand that I think we tend to sometimes lose sight of. And it's also, there's so many kids right now though who are getting into tabletop games, not just digital games. And I think this slots nicely into that world of interest. And I think a lot of those kids are also going to be super taken by the fact that the current world record for solving the Rubik's Cube is 3.13 seconds, set by Max Park in 2023. So I hope someday one of the readers of these two books breaks that, because that would be super cool. All right, and I have one more recommendation. Do we have time for one more?
Sure. I'm kind of in awe that there's 2 books.
I know. I first started this section as, is this like, does 2 books constitute a trend? And I'm like, not really, but like, since it's an anniversary, it's more that. So anyway. Okay, but for my last recommendation of the week, I want to circle back to that moment where Erno Rubik goes for a walk and he figures out this important step of his process. He figures out what this object needs to work. Because I had also, when I revisited that book, was reminded that I just read a picture book coming out in January in 2026 that is focused on exactly that same phenomenon and magic and benefit of taking a walk outside. And that is How to Have a Thought, A Walk with Charles Darwin, written by Nicholas Day and illustrated by Hadley Hooper. So Nicholas Day. Yes. This book is not coming out. This book is not coming out until January, y'all. January 2026. So I'm sorry you have to wait. We're all commenting on Nicholas Day because Nicholas Day wrote The Mona Lisa Vanishes, which I raved about multiple times on this podcast. Yep. And I know Alvina then went and read and recommended for PW, I think, at the time.
Yes.
Which was great. Which is just a terrific, like, middle grade into YA nonfiction book. Nicholas Day has another new book for that same audience, age bracket, coming out in September, called A World Without Summer, A Volcano Erupts, A Creature Awakens, and the Sun Goes Out, which is about the eruption of Mount Tambora. I have not read it yet, so we're not going to talk about that one just yet, but we are going to talk about this picture book, which is, if I didn't say it, That one, A World Without Summer, that comes out in September. So that's coming out sooner. We're going to instead jump ahead for a minute and talk about this book coming in January, which is How to Have a Thought, A Walk with Charles Darwin. So this is a picture book. Hadley Hooper is a printmaker. I love her work, and she's probably best known for The Iridescence of Birds, though she's done so many others too. And I think about that book. The title of that book comes to mind all the time for me, every time I'm looking at birds in our yard, which is daily. Um, they are a dream team. This is another book where I'm like, oh, these two are like, this is the perfect combination of sensibilities and artistry. So this is, it is really a clever, insightful meditation on the power of walking and ritual and on nature to unlock the power of walking and ritual and nature to unlock our creative ideas and help us solve puzzles and give us space to let our brains do their best work. It is sort of a nonfiction, it is sort of a biography, but it's really more of a how-to, which is, again, as the title suggests, how to have a thought. So it comes at it from this really creative angle. Here are the things you need to have a thought. Here are the kind of tools that might work. Oh, and this tool is the kind of tool that Charles Darwin used when he was solving some of the biggest questions of our existence. So in the middle of the book, we learn about Charles Darwin, but through this very quirky, creative angle, which is also, it seems to be a hallmark of Nicholas Day's work. And we learn a fair bit about the puzzles that Darwin was trying to solve, like the big puzzles he's trying to solve. But the detail that I love most is we learn how he got all this stuff. He travels the world. He collects all this these artifacts, this information, and he goes back to his home in the British countryside, and he starts taking walks routinely outside his home, and he starts making little stacks of rocks. And he has a loop he creates, and he will stack up, say, 3 rocks. If it's a 3-rock problem he's trying to solve, he will do the loop and then knock 1 rock off the stack, do another loop, knock the next rock off, and then you do all 3, and it's, 3 rocks. So he starts describing problems as 1 rock, 2 rock, or 3 rock problems, which is just my new favorite description of any challenge ever.
Yeah.
And yes, there are other elements of the book that stay with me, but that is the number one takeaway. I will say that I am jealous of walking in the British countryside, also where paths are a huge thing. I do think that there is some benefit to that, and it may be easier to do that. But still, the concepts, the application of this idea here that getting out and being physically active is beneficial to our brains, that being in nature is beneficial to our brains, all of that stuff is things that even we as adults know and we tend to forget. And so to my mind, this is a really good reminder. Both of these books are a good reminder of doing that. So yeah, anyway, the book is a delight from start to finish. There's terrific back matter. I think it's going to get a lot of play, a lot of publicity. It is certainly worthy of that. And I will say that Gareth and I are about to take a trip to the British countryside soon. We're going to Devon and Cornwall,
nice.
and I will be thinking about this book a lot, I'm sure, while we were there. And I hope to take a lot of inspiring walks in the countryside. I don't know how many rocks I will need to stack. I would probably be doing less looping, I guess, but yeah, super excited.
Yeah.
It's on my bucket
Yeah.
list. It's on my bucket list to do a walking tour, a walking trip in England, actually. So.
Oh, I'll go with you because yeah, it's on my bucket list too. We were in Northumberland briefly for like one night last year en route to Edinburgh, and there were a lot of people who were staying in that corner of the country just to walk the paths, and I was like, why am I not here doing the same thing as you? So yeah,
I'm gonna make everybody come with me.
great. Okay, sounds awesome. I'm in.
Yay. All
So
right.
yeah,
So now we'll end as we always do with what we're grateful for. I'm going to start this week, and mine is going to be sweet and short because it's so hot. And I'm just going to say I'm grateful for air conditioning, that it exists as an invention. Grace, what are you grateful for?
Yes, I'm also really grateful for air conditioning because it has just been so blazing hot here. And so yes, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I have a fairly clear schedule after ALA, so I can just concentrate on my work. I'm really grateful that my small bubble of family and friends, like we're all safe and secure when the greater world isn't. So I'm grateful for that. But the thing, and specifically, I'm really grateful for this week is my chickens. When we first got them, there was one chicken that seemed like it might not make it, but looks like she pulled through, and so they're all
yay.
happy, and they're all getting along, and we have one whose name is Buddy, who is a silky chicken, and she is just so funny looking. She looks like a poodle. She's like, and we just love her so much. And we have another one named Claudia, which is like this. She's got snow pants and she's really small. Like, so they're just so quirky, these chickens. And it's been such a while since we've had chickens, and especially young chickens like this, that it's just so nice to kind of have that kind of chicken area filled again. It's like a nice thing when you
Yay.
come out the house, you're like, hey, chickens. So that's what I'm grateful for this week.
Allison, what are you grateful for?
I was just Grace, your chickens comment and the joy of having them around is making me think of one of our neighbors who is well past retirement age, and he recently got a puppy. And he said, I just felt like I really needed another sentient being in the house right now with everything happening. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. So anyway, so yeah, good for you for bringing more sentient beings into your orbit right now. Because yeah, getting to love and care for other living things feels like a real balm, I think, for all of us at the moment. I'm grateful for all the things you've all mentioned. I'm really grateful to be going to ALA. I feel kind of like a year of my life disappeared. Because a year ago I went to ALA and I was about to leave First Book, but it hadn't been publicly announced yet. So I was like, I had only told like a handful of people because I couldn't really say anything. But I was like full of promise and excitement about where the world was headed and like what I was going to do with my time. And then, as most people know, my mom passed, and my mom was having health issues at the time. She passed away unexpectedly in November, and like my world just became about that. And then the world around us also became about all of the terrifying things that we sort of started my time on this call talking about. So there is a weird way in which I don't know where the last year went. But it's sort of like, okay, fine. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to be with these wonderful people who inspire me. And yeah, we're just going to like pick up where we left off, and it's all good. It's all good. This happens to all of us, right? We have moments where we just have to focus our attention elsewhere, and then we come back again. So yeah, so this feels like a bit of a coming back for me, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity.
I hope we'll all see you. We'll all see. Well, I guess by the time this posts, it'll be after ALA. So
That's true.
But
I hope we will have seen each
we're very
other.
happy to have seen everyone that we saw.
I hope I see you, Allison.
I hope I do too, since you're graciously sharing your hotel room with me. Thank you for that. That'll be very weird
if I don't.
Ships.
Yeah.
All right, and that was the CHOP SUEY, How to Ground Yourself, Publishing News, and AI Again episode. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Alex at Pacey Work Studio for editing this podcast. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend about it.
And tag us on social media using the hashtag BookFriendsForever, or send us a message via Instagram at BookFriendsForever_podcast, or via our website, BookFriendsForever.com. And please join our Patreon. The link is in the show notes.
I'm Alvina Ling. You can find me at Planet Alvina on TikTok and at Alvina Ling on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. Allison, where can people find you?
You can mostly find me at Kid Lit Girl on Instagram, and I haven't been spending time on much of anything else, so I'm just going to mention that one. But I am Alison L. Morris elsewhere, and yeah, hit me up if you have anything you want to ask me or say.
And I'm Grace Lin. You can find me at Pacey Lin on Instagram and Threads, and author Grace Lin on Facebook and Blue Sky.
Have a great week.
And don't forget to read. Bye!